Please welcome Provost and Executive Vice President, Washington State University, and Chancellor, Washington State University Pullman, Dr. Elizabeth Chilton.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. As you just heard, I am Elizabeth Chilton. I'm the Provost and Executive Vice President of Washington State University, and I'm also the inaugural Chancellor of the WSU Pullman campus. So welcome to the Pullman campus. Thank you all very much for attending the DARPA Forward Conference here on the flagship campus of the WSU system. We have participants attending today from all over the country, both in person and remotely, and we feel honored to welcome all of you here. With around $350 million in research expenditures annually, Washington State University has very high research activity and represents the full range of disciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary scholarship. We take seriously our land-grant mission to apply our scholarship and teaching to benefit the state, the nation, and society writ large. And we're proud of the innovation that's represented by our research and extension centers. Excuse me. Smoke is getting to us all a little bit, huh? In this vein, WSU also has a long tradition of research supporting national security, and we're honored that DARPA selected our campus to host this important gathering of top research scientists. DARPA was established in 1958 to facilitate research in technology with potential defense applications. Throughout its more than 50-year history, DARPA has challenged researchers from across academia, industry, and government to create transformative solutions to national security problems. Many of those solutions have also benefited daily civilian life. Working with innovators inside and outside of government, DARPA has repeatedly transformed revolutionary concepts and turned seemingly impossibilities into practical capabilities. The ultimate results have included not only game-changing defense applications, such as precision weapons and stealth technology, but also icons of modern civilian society, such as the internet, automated voice recognition and language translation, and GPS receivers small enough to embed in consumer devices. Here at WSU, DARPA and the Department of Defense have funded research with real-world impact, from exploring the musculature of rodents to developing materials that are more resilient to explosive armaments. Defense-funded research at WSU spans an array of fields of study. In fact, since fiscal year 2018 alone, the Defense Department has provided more than $46 million in research support to WSU. Throughout the next 2 days, you will hear from world-renowned scientists, accomplished innovators, and senior defense leaders. They will share new innovations in national security that will help aim the U.S. technological advantage and address the rapidly evolving challenges faced by the Department of Defense. Other topics will include quantum physics, cybersecurity, performance deficits from sleep loss, and so much more. We're excited to spend the next several days with you. Thank you again for joining us, and welcome to WSU. And now I would like to introduce Vice President for Research at WSU and Vice Chancellor for Research here for the Pullman campus, Chris Keene.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by echoing the warm welcome provided by WSU Provost and Pullman Chancellor Elizabeth Chilton. We are very excited to have all of you on our campus for the next few days. In particular, I'd like to point out that over 100 institutions are represented at this meeting. That's a great turnout, so again, thank you for your support. This is a great moment for both WSU and the broader regional and national research community. As Chancellor Chilton described, WSU researchers untangle complex problems to enrich the quality of life for us all. Our research drives innovation and addresses complex societal challenges. WSU very much appreciates DARPA's support of the university research enterprise, as Dr. Chilton pointed out. DARPA's support of the Institute for Shock Physics and the School of Mechanical and Materials Engineering, two areas where WSU performs world-class leading-edge research, are great examples of DARPA's productive support and very helpful. We appreciate DARPA's visit to WSU and hope to see many more research projects involving DARPA and all of you arise from this meeting. It's now a great pleasure for me to provide you an introduction to Dr. Stephanie Tompkins. Stephanie, who has directed DARPA since March 2021, has spent much of her professional life leading scientists and engineers in developing new technology capabilities. She began her industry career as a senior scientist and later assistant vice president at line manager at Science Applications International Corporation, where she spent 10 years conducting and managing research projects in planetary mapping, geology, and imaging spectroscopy. With nearly 12 years of DARPA service under her belt, she has an exceptional understanding of the agency's culture. From 2007 through 2017, she held multiple positions, including program manager, deputy director of the Strategic Technology Office, and director of the Defense Sciences Office, which is a highly exploratory office that identifies and accelerates new technologies. In 2017 and into the beginning of 2018, she served as the acting deputy director of the agency, and of course, in 2021, Dr. Tompkins returned to DARPA as its 23rd director. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Stephanie as a fellow vice president of research while she was at the Colorado School of Mines, and we've also interacted during her tenure as a DARPA program manager. It's just been wonderful working with her. So let's all give a warm Coug welcome now to Dr. Stephanie Tompkins.
Coming to DARPA is like grabbing the nose cone of a rocket and holding on for dear life.
DARPA's a place where if you don't invent the internet, you only get a B.
A DARPA program manager quite literally invents tomorrow.
We are thinking about innovation unconstrained. Where can we go?
Predict what is emerging as threats.
We're looking for the applications that seem impossible.
That passion will be saving lives 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Coming to work every day and being humbled by that.
The innovation and collaboration, it's a team effort.
We're not builders of the ultimate technology.
It's the engineers and scientists at the companies and universities that we fund that ultimately are going to bend metal and write code and deliver these capabilities to warfighters.
DARPA is not one person or one place. It's a collection of people that are excited about moving technology forward.
Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Stephanie Tompkins.
You already did that. Thank you very much. We really, really wanted to see that video first, because I think in about 1 minute it says more than I can possibly say in the next 25 or 30 minutes, but I'm going to try anyway. So first of all, my deepest thanks to Washington State University for providing us this amazing venue. And welcome to our second DARPA Forward event. I have a bit of connection here myself. You know, I think, as Chris mentioned, I've interacted professionally with WSU. You may not know that I am also the proud daughter, sister, niece, and cousin of quite a large number of very proud Cougar alumni. So when I come here, even though I don't have the distinction of earning a degree here, I feel a little bit like I'm coming to an extended family reunion. So it is especially great to be here. Now, my role today is to introduce you to DARPA and our mission, and to DARPA Forward itself. If you joined us for our very first DARPA Forward event in Colorado, either in person or virtually, thank you. You'll hear some repeats from me because I want to make sure I get the message across just right. But for the rest of the agenda, the content is actually unique to this event, and we'll be taking advantage of the vibrant ecosystem here in the Pacific Northwest. So before I start in on telling you about DARPA, I thought you might like to hear a little bit about yourselves as an audience. About 530 of you in all. About 40% are actually in person and the rest are attending virtually. Not counting the DARPA people, approximately 15% of you are from government, either DoD or any part of the government, 35% from academia, and the rest from industry, both large and small. Now, 21 of you, not 21%, but 21 actual humans, are DARPA risers. Can I have a show of hands from the risers in the audience? Take a look around. We had the privilege of spending the morning with them. Risers are nominated both by DARPA program managers and by the university here and in the surrounding universities in the region as having research that's related to national security but also demonstrates the potential to lead to technological surprise. And that's something that's particularly important to us. Also, 49 of you represent small businesses. That's especially relevant to an announcement that we're going to be making late tomorrow. So please stay tuned. Okay, one more distinction. Just over a third of you, both combining virtual and in person, have never worked with DARPA before. So that means we've got two audiences here, and we're going to try to work hard to satisfy both of you. For those of you that know DARPA really well, we're here to let you know what we're up to, what we're thinking about for the future, to hear what you want us to hear, and to make sure you know that we are absolutely focused on our mission. For the new folks, our job is to introduce you to this crazy and unconventional concept. As the video said, it's just a collection of people moving technology forward in a really extraordinary way. So this concept called DARPA. I wished I'd had something like what we're about to do for you. When I first started at DARPA, I was actually a little unusual, and I came in knowing almost nothing about the agency, and the learning curve was like that. But in typical DARPA fashion, a lot of people rallied around me and tried to get me up that learning curve as quickly as possible. We're going to try to take that experience and we're going to cram it into a day and a half and fully immerse you into kind of the DARPA experience. So let me start by setting context. Talk a little bit about the national security challenges in which DARPA is currently functioning. So adversaries are a lot more confusing than they were a few decades ago. You have terrorist networks, criminal networks, those, for example, that might deploy ransomware. And at the same time, we still have nation-state concerns. And a lot of times, the boundaries between these different organizations and nation-states are much blurrier than they used to be. They operate at multiple scales, from somebody in their garage all the way up to sort of transnational levels of activity, and they operate in both the physical and the virtual world. Now, technology has changed as well. It's become much more dynamic, it's moving quickly, and it's democratized. That means it's moving faster than ever, and it's awesome in terms of our ability to solve problems really quickly and take advantage of much broader communities to solve problems, but it's also terrifying when you think about what kinds of things adversaries might be able to come up with this democratized technology. And the world as a whole and our nation, think about it, incredibly complex and interdependent, particularly volatile right now because people are exhausted, they're still grieving from the pandemic, they're angry, and a lot of them are very afraid of change. So the point is, national security doesn't just look like what you might have thought. It's not just aircraft, ships, or weapons. It means everything, from biodefense to cyber, material science, atmospheric and climate modeling, you name it. And whatever you call it and whatever it is that you might be working on, it's changing rapidly. So the point is that keeping our nation safe is hard. I don't think it'll come as any surprise to you all in this audience that we at DARPA believe that science and technology are an important part of the solution space to keeping our nation safe. Science and technology used wisely, purposefully harnessed, are key to our national security as well as to really incredible societal and economic advances. And it takes an ecosystem to get there. You're all already part of that ecosystem. So, the ecosystem, like everything else, is complex, but I'm going to simplify it into sort of three big chunks. We have the funders, we have the doers, and the users, right? So the funders would be National Science Foundation, the Department of Defense, including us, Department of Energy, other federal government agencies, corporate research and development, philanthropists and investors, and quite a few more, I'm sure. The doers are a lot of the people in this room, the universities and the nonprofits, the industrial partners, industrial labs, federal labs, all of whom are doing the research in order to advance science and technology. And then, of course, all of us work with, listen to, and partner with the users who actually take what we develop and put it into use, and in the DoD sense are risking their lives based on what we created for them. So collectively, that ecosystem makes very steady progress forward. Within the ecosystem, we believe at DARPA that we are the disruptors. DARPA was created during the Cold War in response to a huge technological surprise. It was the launch of the Sputnik satellite by the then Soviet Union. The United States did not want to be surprised like that ever again. And so various leaders in the government decided that one of the best ways to prevent technological surprise would be to create it. And with that, DARPA was born. That is our mission, to create technological surprise. For 64 years, we have made, and we continue to make, pivotal investments in breakthrough technologies for national security. We want to completely change the trajectories of what's possible. We want to accelerate technology development, or we want to find entirely new ways to solve problems. When it seems like there are two impossible choices, our job is to look for the third way. Well, are there material scientists in the room? That's kind of hard to see, but please raise your hand. Yeah, I see a few. So you're all about this, right? You know, materials either have to be really strong or they can be lightweight, but not both. Or maybe, right? This is the third way, and this is what a lot of folks in this room are used to having to kind of think about. DARPA just accelerates and focuses entirely on finding those alternate solutions. Speaking of material science, I'm not sure if you knew this, but DARPA was actually seminal to the creation of material science and engineering as a discipline. A few other things we're known for would include the Saturn V rocket, which took human beings to the moon for the first time. And as you heard just previously, we started something called the ARPANET, which grew up and graduated to become the internet. We held a grand challenge a number of years ago. It was our very first grand challenge where self-driving cars raced each other across the desert. So how hard could that be, right? Actually, pretty hard. But DARPA did the DARPA thing and said, we're going to do it again next year. And the next year, multiple vehicles crossed the finish line. And a few years after that, we put them through an urban challenge where they actually had to interact with each other and with human drivers. And with that, the self-driving car industry was born. I could go on all day. I actually love to talk about DARPA, so careful if you catch me in the hallways. But I just want to share one more sort of, proud parent moment. Because it's incredibly relevant to the fact that we are all able to be here together physically today for the folks that are doing the in-person conference. And that has to do with a program that was started about 11 years ago. It was actually an Air Force Air Force officer, medical doctor, program manager at DARPA. And he had this idea that there had to be a new way to make vaccines because our warfighters go all around the world and they face diseases for which they have no immune protection. And so he started a program which invested in mRNA research, something not well known back then, and a little company which some of you may have heard of called Moderna. So enough with the past. Really at DARPA, we don't rest on our laurels. The job is to think about the future. So as self-driving car story probably indicated, we're not afraid of risk. We actually embrace risk. We even celebrate it. But what that means is we have to have an unusual business model. We recruit program managers to come to DARPA. They come from all sectors and disciplines. We give them access to something close to a $4 billion budget, and we tell them to create and execute technology programs that will change the world. And then after just about 4 years, typically, right when they start to get comfortable, we kick them out, send them back into the world. So at any moment in time, we have about 100 DARPA program managers racing against that clock. Collectively, they start about 50 new DARPA programs a year. What those programs are about, really entirely up to them. That's why we bring them in, and that's why we're constantly refreshing our program manager pool. Now, these programs will first make it out to you as calls for proposals that we call broad agency announcements, or BAAs. And when you read these BAAs, and look, if one comes out that you don't think is particularly interesting, wait a week, because there's going to be another one. When you look at them, there's a really good chance you're going to look at the goals and you're going to say, this is absolutely impossible. I can't tell you how many researchers and teams I have talked with at the completion of successful DARPA programs who sort of grudgingly confided that they didn't really think it was going to work when they first got started. If you think that you, probably working as part of an interdisciplinary team, can meet the BAA's goals, submit a proposal. Or if you think there are program ideas out there that DARPA is missing, talk to us about it. Talk to a program manager and tell us. Some of the things our program managers are working on today, and there are really way too many to name them all, so I'm just going to highlight a few. Well, the first will have to do with artificial intelligence, because I don't think you can have a technology conference in today's world without talking about AI. So our AI Next campaign is, well, let me frame it in the sense that we think about AI as a series of waves. First wave was rule-based, so think about software programs like TurboTax. The second wave is statistically based, basically dealing with vast amounts of data. That's the machine learning era in which we are fully immersed today. Now, the third wave brings those two together, sort of the era of contextual reasoning. That's where a lot of DARPA programs are pushing, sort of beyond machine learning and going to what's next. And I swear to you, I have heard enough conversations in the hall to know that the fourth wave, not quite sure how to define it yet, but the fourth wave is bubbling as well. Another really hot topic in technology would be microelectronics. So Moore's Law, I'm pretty sure you all have heard of it at this point. Continuous improvement in microelectronics over multiple decades have enabled countless improvements to modern life. A lot of us thought we were reaching the end of that curve, that continuous improvement. You can see that on the slide there. We didn't agree, and several years ago we launched something called the Electronics Resurgence Initiative. We're now all in on some of the breakthroughs that were demonstrated through ERI, and we're getting ready to launch ERI 2.0, which is going to focus on how you take those breakthrough technologies and scale them up and make them exist practically in the real world. So stay tuned for more. There are going to be a lot of ERI-related programs coming out in the very near future. So with AI and microelectronics, they probably sound a lot like technology push. While they are at some level, in general, in DARPA, we really focus on problems and we focus on solving problems. So we're very much use-inspired. So I'm going to give you my third example, really focusing on sort of a grand scale problem that a lot of different technologies are going to be poking at from multiple directions. That has to do with resilient supply chains. A few years ago, I think that would have elicited a big yawn. But in today's world, I think we've all learned about the fragility of supply chains and the fact that we would like them to be much more robust. So we have multiple programs. As usual, our program managers anticipated this, and they started multiple years ago, programs in things like making food, water, and medicine at the point of need. So imagine food being made from garbage or even from air, water also being extracted directly from air, even in the most arid environments, or medicine being manufactured on-site from whatever cheap commodity materials are available. We're also investing in global modeling and simulation networks that will allow us to better understand these really complex supply and demand networks and understanding where some of the fragility is so that we can either invest more research or come up with alternate solutions. And we also are practical enough to realize that you can't always make what you want where you need it. So we're also thinking about new ways to actually deliver things in much more effective ways. So, as I said, these are just a very small sample of all the things that we're working on. The point to take away is that our business model, new people, new ideas, and big risks, is really important for you to understand, especially if you're new to DARPA. It brings us to why we're here today at DARPA Forward. Okay, so all the folks who know DARPA already, you're thinking, yeah, we've done this before, right? DARPA has periodically brought together people for very big events every few years, and great connections have been made there. I've attended 3 of them myself. They're fantastic. Ideas have been sparked. Both successes and failures have been celebrated. But what has always worried me was not sort of what we were doing, but what we were missing. So one of the things I've learned, especially since moving out west, is sort of face-to-face connections with what we were missing. And these are people like you working on incredibly important problems and working on really cool breakthrough technologies, but not associated with national security, where we think that your talents could be absolutely not just useful and relevant, but incredibly important. So we thought rather than holding one big conference somewhere and assuming that you would know us well enough to come find us, we decided to come out to you. So we're at 6 regional locations, hoping to tap into these sort of regional and local innovation ecosystems. We're here to ask you to think about taking a leap with us. Help us think the thoughts that we have not yet dreamed up. If this interests you, by the way, there's a lot of information in the brochure with more specific details on how to work for DARPA, how to work with DARPA, or how to tell DARPA what you think. If you're an adrenaline junkie of any sort, you might really want to think about this because DARPA is for you. Okay, so The agenda then was designed, as I said at the beginning, to kind of immerse you in DARPA. We created it so that it would kind of give you a taste of life at DARPA. The daily conversations, the arguments that are happening in the hallways, the mind-altering challenges against our assumptions of what is actually possible or impossible. You'll hear portfolio briefs where we talk about things that we have already invested in or are getting ready to invest in. You'll hear panelists provide what they think might be even a little further out in the future. We've got some amazing keynote speakers for you and some really great palate cleansers in the form of lightning talks and demonstrations. We also invited WSU as our host to take 1 hour and highlight topics they think would be exciting and relevant to everyone here. So as you look at the agenda, I encourage you to put aside any notions you might have about whether a topic is of interest to you. I'm guessing, because I do this myself, a lot of you have already decided that you want to skip certain topics because it's not in your field, maybe more time to check your email. I'm going to ask you as much as possible not to do that, and instead pay attention to as much as you can take in and be open to an unexpected connection on a problem outside your normal area of expertise. If we're successful by the end of tomorrow, your brain will hurt, in a good way. Oh, speaking of by the end of tomorrow, if you've ever attended a DARPA conference before, you know we like to announce some of our big new DARPA initiatives at events like these. So we will share some news tomorrow. I hinted at that before, about a big bet that we're getting ready to make. Again, small business attendees or any non-traditional business, so any business that doesn't normally work with the Department of Defense, stick around because there's going to be a lot of relevance to you. And if your brain hasn't already exploded by then we're going to give you something interesting to think about on your way home. If some of what you're hearing inspires you throughout the next couple of days to think about working as one of those 100 DARPA program managers, important self-centered plug here. Our Strategic Resources Office is on site. They're manning a table outside the auditorium. I encourage you to stop by during one of the breaks to learn a little bit more.